Are the Lakers thriving with Rui Hachimura as the sixth man? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter where you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Maybe you're one of the 37,000 plus people who subscribe to the Locked On Lakers YouTube channel. No matter how you do it, you're part of making the Locked On Podcast Network the number one sports podcast network in this or any other known universe. I'm Brian Kamenetsky with Andy Kamenetsky. Covered the Lakers for about 20 years with the LA Times, with ESPN, with The Athletic. And the Lakers are out on the Grammy trip. They have finally, it took a while, but Andy, they were able to take off to get to Chicago on Sunday, and presumably will be there to be able to play on Monday. But it's a long road trip still ahead of them, and finding some momentum, finding some stuff that works for them is very important. And to that point, Andy, it may be that they are finally doing what you and I have been begging for them to do since training camp, and that is bring Rui Hachimura off the bench permanently as a sixth man.
I mean, I had brought up this possibility heading into last year as well, but at the time, the main guy that I wanted to be the fifth starter for skill set, purpose, balancing, and stuff like that, Jared Vanderbilt, could never stay happy, and also it took
healthy.
It's safe, could never stay healthy, and I think it's also what
we don't know about it. I would say we don't know about his mood. He just couldn't stay healthy.
Oh, I thought I said healthy.
You said happy.
I combined two things. I was going to say healthy with Vanderbilt. JJ Redick could never stay happy enough with his performance in order to keep him on the court, play him enough, healthy or not. But Vando's now back in the rotation. Rui Hachimura, though, coming off the bench, and the last few games, I think we're starting to see where this is both benefiting Rui and the Lakers. His percentages as a reserve overall, both from the field and from deep, they're lower than his season average, though I think some of that is due to the earlier minutes limit and just getting used to this. But the last 3 games that Rui has played off the bench, which appears to indicate a minutes limit being over, they were all 28, 29 minutes, something like that. Individually in that period, those 3 games, Rui's got the best plus minus and the best net rating on the team. And as we predicted, his field goal attempts are up from his numbers as a starter. In those 3 games, he's averaging 12.3 shots a game versus 9.5 on the season. His usage is up. In other words, shock of all shocks, he's more involved in the offense because he's not spending large chunks of the opening quarters, particularly in the first quarter, aka Luka-Palooza, buried for opportunities and touches. So it makes sense that this would be happening, but also too, I think zooming out, the teams benefiting. Like, the bench is not super prolific, but again, over these last 3 games, post minutes limit, they're up from 30 to 23. So it's incremental improvement, and they are also collectively winning their minutes. Whereas before, they were, for the season, they were a net 0, like 0.0. And the eye test did not match the numbers.
Well, in the sense, like, it seemed worse.
That's what I mean. What I mean. The eye test seemed like it was far worse. We can talk about more. I think some of the floor combinations that Rui has been used with as he's coming off the bench are bringing out some interesting qualities in Rui. He's also, in these last 3 games, averaging nearly 6 rebounds a game, despite playing fewer minutes than his season averages. So thus far, this seems to be bearing fruit in the way both of us thought that it would, both for Rui individually and for the team collectively. So again, small sample size, but so far so good.
Do want to let people know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. We got a Super Bowl coming up, and if you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So I look at this kind of like you do. It's like first of all, the 28 minutes, give or take, I think that's about what he'd be playing anyway. 28 to 30, something
Mhm.
like that. That's the normal amount of Rui minutes. We saw, you can't hit huge clutch threes down the stretch of a game and late in the fourth quarter if you're not part of that closing lineup. And Rui obviously was. And I think regardless, even when Reaves comes back, and I presume Rui will stay a sixth man, minutes restrictions up, and all these other things, you could return to the basic lineup that they had anticipated before the year. I don't think that they will. I guess that's first and foremost. Do you agree?
If that was the plan, I don't know why Rui isn't starting now.
Well, again, it'd be like because of the minutes restrictions and stuff like
The
that.
minutes restriction seems to be over.
It does. I agree with you. So, I mean, it seems to me
it would make no sense to me to move Rui back into the starting lineup once Austin returns. If he needs to be starting then he needs to be starting now.
Right. My point is that perhaps there is just this lingering, restriction or carefulness or whatever. The basic question is, do you think he's going to stay on the bench? And I do.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah. It doesn't mean he's not going to finish a lot of games, because I think the Lakers will probably start Smart. It wouldn't totally shock me if LaRavia stayed in the starting lineup, even once Reaves was back. But what we saw on Saturday in Dallas, was how important it is to have somebody on the floor who isn't one of the stars or whatever, that has real shot making, 3-point making capability. Somebody that when you leave that person open, the other team's fans are like, ooh, like this could be bad. And he is the only person on the team that you could reasonably refer to, and JJ did after the game, as a laser. That's the fancy term people use now for guys who can really shoot. If the Lakers have any lasers, he's the only one. So,
Rui's a legit laser.
Yeah,
Rui's
has developed into a legitimately excellent 3-point shooter.
Yeah, he's a laser.
If
anything, he does not laze enough,
right?
But he is a laser.
Pew 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 pew.
Yeah,
you need that on the floor. Like in the modern NBA, it is really important to have that guy who can, especially somebody who can come, off a drive and be there for a kick or a swing, which is how he got one of his threes on Saturday night. Like, you need that skill set. And so I think one of the things that you're going to get to are like these combinations that seem to make Rui more viable defensively. The Lakers, by the way, been a very good fourth quarter team and a very good defensive team in the fourth quarter. Despite some of their uglier statistics.
Over the last 4 games, the Lakers have an 86.2 defensive rating. That is the second best in the fourth quarter. It's the second best in the league for the fourth quarter. They also have, I believe, over the last 4 games, over the last 4 games, they have the 4th best defensive rating, period. Mm-hmm. Yes, 107.4 for the last 4 games over the course of entire games. The offensive rating has only been 19th, but they still have an overall positive offensive rating. And then again, like I said, in the fourth quarter, they have the second best offensive rating, second best defensive rating, second best overall net rating. They have been legitimately nails in the fourth quarter, particularly down the stretch. You can parse it all you want in terms of some of these games, quality of competition, should it have even turned into a clutch game to begin with, whatever. The bottom line is, when they need to execute most, they have been consistently very good at it.
Well, I will say this too. I mean, for most of the season, they've kind of won in similar ways they've lost. For most of the season, I'd have to look back up again. Recently, like, they're averaging 10 points, for their victories by double digits. Like that's been where a lot of that has come. It's really just that the losses are so loud that it kind of drowns some of that out. But let's talk a little bit about combinations, a little bit what changes when Rui comes off the bench and who benefits from that. And Andy, we'll get more into this defensive resurgence that we've seen. We'll do all that next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. It's finally settled. We know the last team standing in the NFL, the matchup in 2 weeks, Super Bowl 60. And FanDuel is making sure you are right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year, whether you're backing the favorite, riding the underdog. I got to take a look at some of these lines and some of the prognostication analysis. I think you can make a case for underdogs, favorites on both sides. But either way, if you're building one last same game parlay, whatever your option is, this is the game everyone's waiting for. It's where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines. Every snap feels bigger than the last one. It is the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from the kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer to FanDuel, bet just $5, get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, new people, the season's over. The NFL season's done. The last call for football on FanDuel, what a PSA, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com.
Yeah, don't be one of those Pro Bowl people.
Well, that's before the Super Bowl anyway.
Oh, that's true. You're right.
Yeah,
they do that before.
No, really,
now. You're right.
Brian, listen to the copy. Once the Super Bowl's over, it's the last call for football on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started.
One of the things that you and I were texting about this before, like one of the knocks on Rui is defense. He is not a great defender. He's not a great rebounder, although, like as you said, he's had a couple pretty decent rebounding games. He had 8 against Dallas, and I will say, our friend Tim _NBA Cranjismic Basketball does do a lot of box out tracking. And Rui is one of the more, I believe, consistent box out guys.
Last I looked by Cranjis's metrics, and these metrics can vary depending on where you go and how they track them. But according to his metrics, Rui is among the more consistent box out guys on the team.
So, and that's a big deal. Like, you do your job, the ball might fall to somebody else. So, like, it gets to my basic theory about Rui defensively. I think he is willing. I think he is aware of the importance of it. Don't think he is Cam Thomas, who seems extremely indifferent and just, I'm here to get some buckets and that's how we're going to do it. I don't think he's got great defensive instincts. So along those lines, it's really important to kind of who you putting him around and what's the context. And in that regard, you noticed something I thought that was pretty interesting the other day.
Yeah, and this is something that has really been a trend over these last few games where, again, it seems to me like Rui is off his minutes limit altogether, and he is getting more minutes and therefore more time on the floor, more combinations. Rui's been a part of some pretty big defensive surges over these last 3 games, win or lose for the Lakers. And one of the things I've noticed is when he's out there more with Vando and Jackson Hayes, Marcus Smart, LaRavia, like some of the higher motor guys on this team, and then usually either Luka or especially LeBron, because LeBron has also been one of the guys that JJ's been playing a lot with some of these high energy defense guys. Rui's own motor raises a lot. And when Rui has a high motor going, whether because he's newly inspired or just trying to match what everyone else is doing, because there can be a pressure to not look like the weakest link. It is much easier to slack on defense when it feels like everybody else is and you don't really stand out. Whenever
you want to be the 3rd worst defender or the fourth worst, not the 5th.
Right. Right. I mean, when everybody else, though, is flying around, it's like we talked about last year with LeBron and the conversation JJ had with him about, look, man, I can't get these other guys to play defense consistently if you don't. And once LeBron started doing it very regularly, it's clear when the old man's doing it, we have no other choice. If you put Rui out there with more high motor guys, his own motor raises. And then at that point, some of the athleticism, some of the speed, some of the things that make you kind of perplexed why Rui isn't a great defender in the first place. I'm not saying he turns into like prime Ron Artest, but he becomes a much more passable defender.
He is defensive tofu. He takes on the flavors and characteristics of the ingredients around him.
It's a great
if you put really spicy, exciting ingredients around him, he is going to play in that way. If you put inattentive, incoherent defense,
it's just a plate of tofu.
Right.
And I like tofu, but by itself,
if you put other tofu around him,
that's what I mean. Like just a plate of tofu.
Right. It's tofu Rui and then like 4 other tofu.
Yeah.
It's not gonna look right. And so
it's not gonna be that taste that great.
But this is partially why, again, Rui was part of decent defensive lineups last year too, without being, because like I said, it's not that he's not willing to try. It's why if you put the right people around him, Austin can be a perfectly effective team defender, because he is willing to put in the effort, and he is going to at least try to do what he's supposed to do. Austin is more limited by athleticism. I think Rui is limited more by defensive instincts. It's the NBA game moves incredibly fast, and if it's just not something that you see as clearly as some other guys do, you only have to be a quarter second late or a half second late or a half step behind for entire plays to blow up. That's how good these guys are. And so I think if you I agree with you. Rui surrounded by good energy players is going to give him energy. Or if it's the fourth quarter and you're in a 5-point game and everybody's intensity has picked up, Rui's is going to pick up. Luka is like that. In the fourth quarter, the tracking stats, Dallas attacked him all game. Luka had, I think, 6 straight stops or shots that were missed while he was defending in that game. But some of that is statistical luck and variance, but a lot of it is everybody turns up their energy when you're that part of the game.
Well, to your point about Luka, I remember a conversation we had with Iztok Franco, who has covered Luka going back to Slovenia and Real Madrid. And one of the things that he has said, and it can be often very counterintuitive to the way people talk about Luka, and he wasn't necessarily recommending this as an entire game, but he said one of the best ways to get the best out of Luka defensively is actually not to hide him, but to actually put him on the most difficult, reasonable assignment for him. Like the highest degree of difficulty that you can reasonably ask Luka to defend over multiple possessions over the course of however many minutes he's going to play. The more you can do that, the more generally engaged you get from Luka, because he's just wired to be so competitive. And if you put him in the right matchup, he actually can be better than his reputation. But I think Sky Falcon 5 raises a good point about Rui, and it's something we've both talked about a lot and why we wanted him to move to the bench in the first place. Rui as the 4th or 5th defender in bench lineups work. When he had to be the 1st or 2nd defender as a starter, that is a problem. And in fairness to Rui, when he was part of a starting lineup of Luka, LeBron, Austin, Ayton, Rui, he was regularly being asked to guard out of position against guards and small wings that he has no prayer of stopping those guys.
And at a level higher than he's supposed, like
right.
Probably having to guard someone a little better than you would want Rui to be guarding.
Yeah. And at that point, the ask isn't reasonable. The ask now is more reasonable with some of these lineups with Rui. And again, I'm hoping that he's recognizing these benefits over the last few games of him coming off the bench. Like, it's bringing out a lot good and useful for him individually beyond what it's doing for the team.
There are a couple things that need to get fixed over the course of the season, and I don't mean like in a trade deadline kind of way, but like with assuming the personnel that they have. A huge one is the distribution of offense throughout a game and a rotation. And one of the things that I think the Lakers can try to address should be coming up relatively soon on this road trip. I'll explain next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. There is nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part, not always so simple. And that's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets, fast and without a hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans so they can regain their power. You can pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and you got tickets locked in within minutes. And with the all-in price up front, there's no surprise fees at the checkout. There's no, wait, I just paid for what now? Like, being able to see the view from the seat before you buy makes the decision easier, especially with an app that's super user-friendly and super user-intuitive. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets for the NBA with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON NBA for, that's the code LOCKEDON for $20 off. LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com.
Do want to let everybody know about the Everydayer Club NBA trade deadline. It's basically here. We want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to the group chat, Locked On Lakers Discord chat just for fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with fans from around the league. You'll also get ad-free versions of this show. And if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can use the code DEADLINE to get your first month free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Again, use the code DEADLINE to do that. It's $5 a month, $50 a year, access to the Discord channel that Andy and I will be popping in and out of, using stuff for the show. And, of course, you get ad-free, which is pretty cool. So check it out, see if it's for you. And if not, do nothing and continue consuming the show as you always have, and we will love you just the same. Okay, so the Lakers aren't going to get faster. They are not going to, suddenly be able to shoot the lights out. They kind of are what they are. They win a lot of games. If you can get them on a night where their weaknesses are easier to exploit, you might beat them by 20. One thing that they can fix, though, is the distribution of scoring. And this is where Austin Reaves coming back, hopefully before the end of this trip. That's what the Lakers are forecasting. They believe he will be back to play on this trip, not necessarily even with that last game. This is going to make a huge difference potentially because, like, right now, the Lakers, you have Luka, who's, pretty much an automatic 30 every night or pretty close to it. But behind him, like, LeBron has been really good over the last, offensively at least over the last, 5 weeks or so, since his birthday. But if I asked you, like, which one of these guys is more likely to blow up for 35 on any given night, and I gave you LeBron or Austin, who would you say is more likely?
Austin.
Me too. Absolutely. Yeah. At this point in his career, LeBron, I think, is more of a reliable 18 to 25, but with 5 or 10 minutes over the course of a game where you get like what you got in Dallas, where he still can take over a game, cause those steals, got up and down the floor, finished at the basket, makes a big three, all that kind of stuff. He's still got that in him. But like, if I had to guess which player on the Lakers would score 35 more often between now and the end of the season, I would take Austin over LeBron.
For me, the answer is even simpler. They're both capable. The Lakers are going to be looking for practical reasons for Austin to do it more than LeBron. Once Austin is back, the ask of 35, if you need that from someone beyond Luka, the ask is more reasonable.
For sure, 100%,
than LeBron,
100%. But I also think, just from a capability standpoint, night in and night out, I would say Austin at this point is more that guy. But now you're slotting, everybody gets bumped down, and you have, your bench combinations. You're going to see 2 of the 3 of those guys on the floor a lot. It's going to make Rui better in that 6-man role. It's going to make LeBron more effective in that sort of, playing with that bench role, which he had. Like, people complain a lot about his plus minus. Most of his plus minus, when it gets really, really negative, that's just because Luka's not on the floor. And anybody who plays when Luka's not on the floor is going to suffer.
Well, it's interesting, though. I mean,
it's not just that, but I was
going to say, you are correct. For a while, though, the plus minus for LeBron suffered because he and Luka together were not working.
Correct. No, yeah, it's not the only reason, but it makes a difference when you play with units that struggle to score, and you go through these stretches where it's really, really difficult to defend. It's just like everybody's numbers get skewed, and the Lakers had been suffering offensively without Luka on the floor, sometimes with him. But Austin's return is going to make Jake LaRavia better. It's going to make DeAndre Ayton, who we should talk about this week. We'll see how he plays in Chicago. It's a
Jake LaRavia, too. We should let people know he's questionable for this game against the Bulls. Quad contusion. We shall see if he plays. If he doesn't, that means officially no Laker will have played 82 games this year, because Jake is the only guy who's played in all of them. It'll also be interesting to see if he doesn't play, what happens with the starting lineup. Again, I would prefer JJ finds somebody else other than Rui, just because I would like to keep that continuity.
Yeah, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. And JJ might feel like, I really don't have a better option, but I would like to see that continuity continue with Rui. Hopefully Jake can play, problem solved.
But like, it's just, everybody gets to be in a role that is more suited to what they need offensively. And the Lakers just don't have a lot of guys that you really want to be a position to rely on offensively outside of that big 3. And the exception to that is Rui. And it's another reason, like you say,
I would include Ayton. I would include DeAndre Ayton. He's supposed to be.
I would include Ayton, except it's the only reason I don't. Like, I'm willing to kind of flush the game from the other night. He was around the basket. He missed. He has not been as good over the last month, which is something we can talk about. But, he's also had some good games. The only reason I don't include him in the same way is that he is so dependent on sort of the functioning of the rest of the offense to get the kinds of shots that he's thrived with. Rui, I think, is a guy who you can do sort of more thing. He can spot up and shoot. You can drop it in the post. He can get it in the mid range. It's just, and he can do a few more things, himself. I agree. Ayton is like that, but he's also like, the number of shots. But
I just mean he's supposed to be on that list. I mean, you could say the same thing about Rui. For a month or so, they forgot he was on the team. So I put Rui in the exact same class with Ayton when it comes to a dependence on the other 3 guys dictating his own offense.
I can see what you're saying.
He's only going to, in a lot of ways, he's only going to be as productive as the other 3 guys allow him to be.
So we'll see. I think these next few games, we'll see what, once Austin comes back, he will absolutely be on a minutes restriction when he does. But like once and you can start to see the contours of what this is going to look like when he gets back, who's going to play with who, and all of that. Like this will be the moment where we see like, okay, just how threatening is this team? Because I know everybody they've been playing is missing guys and this and that and whatever. The Lakers, it has become very clear, need Austin Reaves. And if he's not there, it puts stresses on places in their roster that really cannot afford to be stressed.
Well, it's also, though, going to be really, when you were saying before, like how dangerous can this team be? Like what really is the realistic ceiling for this group? Like you can land on an answer, but the timing of Austin's return in a lot of ways, I think, will dictate what they decide to do about it. Because if, say, he comes back one game before the trade deadline, like the Lakers actually play on the trade deadline. It's against Philly, I believe, on whatever that is, the 5th or the 6th. So they've lost a lot of opportunity to really have a concrete understanding of what works best, what works worst, what's the best way to address some of this beyond some of the things that are just obvious. Like it's obvious they need more athleticism. It's obvious they need more speed. It's obvious they could use more shooting, more defense everywhere, but particularly along the wings or perimeter, head of the snake type deal. Like those things are all obvious. But as far as deeper looks under the hood, like which floor combinations really work best, things like that, they've lost a lot of opportunities to gain information. And, depending on when Austin comes back, it may require Rob to make more of what he might consider a blind leap into the deadline than he wants. It also could, I suppose, serve as his impetus not to do anything, like a convenient reason. So, and, we're going to talk about this over the course of the week. There are a lot of people predicting Rob may not end up doing much at the deadline because not much is going to be happening anyway with this team or otherwise.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We'll talk about. Mark Stein wrote, if you subscribe to his Substack, and you should, he had his Sunday column is all about trade deadline stuff, and it's so much of what's going on in the league is tied to these big names, and Giannis and Ja and Jonathan Kuminga, who is not necessarily a huge name, but is integral to the discussions, because if Golden State makes a move, it is certainly going to involve him. All of them are hurt. And so with injuries that are projected to take them past the deadline. And so that is going to have an impact on the trade deadline.
Giannis in particular.
Yeah. What it is, it's hard to say, but it's going to have an impact. And so, Rob's flexibility, certainly you can create scenarios where you say, like, he's going to have less things to do because there may be less activity, as, especially like you say, around Giannis. People are trying to, stay in the sweepstakes. You don't want to use up stuff you might need to use over the summer or whenever it might be. But I mean, it's funny too. Like, we can leave after this, but like even somebody like Drew Timme, who, I don't think it wasn't great in Dallas, but he's had some good moments. And if deployed even for 10 or 15 minutes, like, he doesn't solve the athleticism problem. He certainly doesn't solve the speed problem. And he's really not solving your defense problem. But his offensive skill set has shown itself to be really valuable for a group that has struggled to create decent shots. And so I say that mostly to your point of, like, if you can find little ways to address some of these things, doesn't necessarily have to be with a groundbreaking move. One guy who adds a little bit of something to a place that they didn't changes the dynamic of the group. It's like you say with Rui, if you put him with the right guys, it slots him in places that makes him a better player. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
No,
Then I'll tell people that Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you're going to hang out with over 37,000 subscribers. Lakers are in Chicago on Monday playing the Bulls. Will be there for you at the end of the game. Talk to you then.